One.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. How are we doing today? This is Bob Gums bringing you the Concern Forum. we have we have quite a few things going on today. Some good, some bad. What's good? The trial. And no, folks, I don't consider this to be the trial of the century. It is a trial of dramatic of some importance, right? But I don't know. You hear some of these news people talking about Trump. Oh, it's the trial of the century. Well, I don't know if that's being done to boost ratings. If that happens to be the case, I don't think that's a good idea. And I tell you why. Because you're taking something that is of great strategic importance to us, to the American people, and how we are going to live our lives for the next, 20 years or so. And it's almost like they have turned it into some kind of horse race. Who's the better jockey? The DA or Trump and his lawyers? And that really shouldn't be the point. The point is that this guy is a criminal. And we're getting to the point now where, for once, this guy might be held accountable for the things that he's done. And for the people that say, oh, well, this was really of no importance, this is BS, all politicians do this. No, and again, no, right? In general, American politicians don't deserve a prize for integrity. But generally speaking, as things go, our politicos, our politicians, I would say generally, they're fairly okay. I think there's a lot of, tweaks maybe that we need to do on our political system. But generally speaking, we're not, we're a Western nation, and generally Western nations, they're pretty damn good. Now, there are some countries, you go and something happens, you need the help of your government or even your police force. And the guy said, well, hey, how about slipping a few bucks underneath the table, right? I'm not saying that doesn't happen here in the United States. But when it does happen, which is rare, okay? But when it does happen, you better not get caught. Because if you get caught, you will go to jail or be forced to pay a huge fine. And that's real. And see, what bothers me about some of these people who I don't know, try to make it out like Trump is some kind of saint, what bothers me about people like that is, what are you saying that you want? Are you saying because he's Donald Trump and you like Trump because he hates the same people that you hate, so you're saying that he should be allowed to cheat? I don't get it. See, this is what I don't understand. Either you're saying the man didn't do anything wrong, or you're saying yeah, he did something wrong, so what? And I think that that's pretty damn dangerous. Now, we're not a perfect democracy. We know that. And you should also know that we have been working on ourselves, on this thing called America, from the time that we began. You know, what did Ben Franklin tell the lady when she asked in 1787, when after we finally got the Constitution set up and everybody had signed up for it, and she asked Franklin, she said, well, hey, Dr. Franklin, what have you given us? A monarchy or a democracy? And old Ben just told her, he said, hey, a democracy, if you can keep it. And see, you don't keep a democracy by allowing people to get away with criminality. And, dare I say, criminality and treason. That's not a way to keep a democracy. And for those of you who are Republicans or Republicans who love Trump, I hate to disappoint you. But Trump has not given any indication that he is fit to be the chief executive officer of a democracy. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for you if you don't see that. If you think that he should be allowed to get away with the things that he has done. And see, when you have a situation, how many people, how many associates, right? Cabinet officers, associates, assistants to the assistants. How many of those type of people went to jail in the Obama administration? Oh, okay, hold on a second. Let me look at this. None. All right? Now, in Donald's administration, I think about half the folks that he was associated with either went to jail, got indicted, a lot of them are still under indictment, and it's in general just a big legal mess. So it's time for folks to start thinking, especially those people who are so hung up with, oh, well, yeah, I'm a follower of Trump. Listen, in the first place, this is America. We're talking about an elected official. We don't have followers here, okay? This is not some type of, religious cult. Unfortunately, that's how Trump, apparently, that's what he thinks he's the head of, a religious cult. We had two major parties, Republican and Democrat. Now, you have one party that is a party for elections where people vote, and the other party, the Republican Party, who the hell knows what they are? They don't know what they are. They don't know who they are. We know it's a cult. It has all the earmarks of a cult. You think the founders would be happy with that? It's funny, man. Some conservatives are always quick. Oh, this is, the founders this is not what they meant and blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't think that they meant that we should have a cult. Oh, looks like I dropped something. Excuse me a second. I don't think that they wanted us to have a cult. But this is what we have. And I tell you, I guess people wonder, well, why it's always about Trump. Well, look, this is what Trump wants. Although, unfortunately for him, it's not working out the way that he wanted it to work out. You have two different slides here, right? You got Trump sitting up in the courtroom, sleeping half the time, and then you got Biden. He's out there in the campaign field, basically explaining to Americans, yeah, this is what I've been working on for you, right? That's what he's supposed to do, number one. Number two, because I heard somebody say something to me that was utterly stupid. Yeah, Biden is trying to buy the vote of college people. Listen, in the first place, he's not buying anything. Okay, that's number one. Number two, this is a democracy. In a democracy, in our form of government, the people who run the government are supposed to be running it for the benefit of the mass majority of the citizens. This whole college loan thing is important. Why? Because you want to have an educated society. Now, I know that there are many Republicans out there. Two things they hate. They hate military people, and they hate college-educated people. They don't like the military anymore because in the military, we don't have time for BS. And when you have some guy that talks about, yeah, well, I've done blah, blah, blah with the military and for the military, and I believe in our freedom through strength and all this BS. Well, the people in the military, they know when that's a bunch of crap that the guy or gal is saying. Because we're there. We're in the front line of all of this stuff, right? And they know that Trump is full of crap. They also know that Trump has been he is just a little bit too damn cozy as an American president with Putin. Now, they see that, right? No one has to explain that to them. And when Trump makes statements that he trusts Putin more than he trusts his own military intelligence, well, don't you think military people notice that type of thing? I mean, come on, really. Once again, people, it's time to get woke, right? As far as college people are concerned, well, generally, there are unfortunately a lot of right-wing conservative Republicans who have a strong dislike for people that read, especially if they read a lot. One of the things that you're supposed to do when you're in the university, you're supposed to read, okay? And that is what really, listen, oh, God, I've got to get that tape up. I'll try and have it for our next session. But, you got Trump, right, on camera, talking right into the microphones when he was, while he was president, and he was saying, I love the undereducated. I love the lower educated. This comes out of his own mouth, okay? So that's the reason why, they talk this nonsense about, college people. There's anything that's disruptive in society. Trump and people like him And a lot of Republicans, the first people or groups that they want to point their fingers at are college people, right? Like, going to Columbia University or USC or wherever, like that's some kind of, oh, they went to college and they got this disease. Well, yeah, they did catch a disease. It's a disease called knowledge, right? See, this should drive home the point, right, of how damned important education is, especially when you're talking about maintaining a democratic society. Because that old cliche is correct, 100% correct. Knowledge is power. And you know how most Republicans feel about power being shared. They feel the same way that they feel about money and resources being shared. They don't like it. And that's what, that is the problem. Listen, I tell you one of the things that's really ticking me off about what's happening nowadays. And I hope Palestinian Americans who are upset about what's going on over in Gaza, I hope that you will pay attention to this, point that I'm trying to make here. Do not let yourselves be co-opted by people who are blatantly anti-Semitic, right? And people who will do anything to try and destabilize our political system. Because I was there the first time the campus was taken over, back in '68. I was a kid, but that's where my Boy Scout troop was at. And I remember it was basically a love fest. But there was, they were doing the right thing, because at that time, Columbia was not paying any attention to the surrounding community. And you had people from the community. I mean, me, myself, I just lived about, 7 blocks from Columbia campus. And there were a lot of folks like me, and you had a lot of students that were upset because of some of the departments in Columbia were actively helping the Department of Defense and the things that they were doing in Vietnam and Cambodia. So there's a lot behind this. And, you have all these people now, oh, well, they're supposed to be there to learn. Civic activism is a part of the education. Let me tell you a real quick story, okay? Back in, I would say back in the late 80s, right? I made a real bad mistake. The mistake I made was in '91 because I chose to leave the Navy. Some of the folks were mad at me because, I was a pretty good sailor, right? The records show this. I'm quite sure somebody listening to this is going to try and say, well, maybe there's a way we can throw some mud at them. So they're going to comb through all my records, my background. Fine, have at it. But let me tell you, what I did was foolish. I was an angry young man, and I did a very foolish thing. And that foolish thing was, as I said, instead of re-enlisting, I chose to leave the Navy. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't, right? I would have went on ahead and re-enlisted. But why did because I really love the Navy. I still do, okay? But you're probably thinking, well, if he feels that way, why did he leave? I did a very foolish thing. I mean, besides leaving when I could have stayed, just just as a something to think about. Anytime when you're in a situation and people are more upset with you because you're leaving and they would like for you to stay, think twice. Always think twice when you find yourself in a situation like that, okay? Because they wanted me to stay. The division officer, the people that I worked with on a day-to-day basis, we had been through some rough times together, and that kind of builds a bond. Unfortunately, what I did, while I was still in D.C. Doing my intelligence work, I said, well, let me try and find out if I can find a unit that's not, going to be going to sea that much. And that was stupid because I should have went on ahead, taken my original assignment, which was Scotland. But I, trying to be slick, kid out the projects, old New Yorker, trying to be slick. I said, well, I'm going to try and be slick. I'm going to try and put one over on the personnel department. And I found out about this fighter squadron, right? Supposedly, they were going to be doing a lot of downtime, which means a lot of time, make it simple, means a lot of time on shore. Because most squadrons, what they do, they deploy a lot. Right? Because that's what they do. F-18s fly off of aircraft carriers. So you are deployed on that carrier. You become a part of that ship's company for 6, 8, 12, 14 months, for however long that carrier is going to be out there, usually the Mediterranean, right? Which means the Middle East, right? And I was, let me see, I got married in '86. This is like 87, end of '87, going '88. So I was still kind of, into that newlywed frame of mind, right? So, like I said, I found out about this squadron, and it's in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I'm just thinking, hey, Florida, palm trees, blah, 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 sand, really cool, right? Boy, did I dial the wrong number. See, what you have to understand about Florida is weird because Florida, the further south you go, right, it's more like being in the Bronx. A lot of Spanish-speaking people, the brothers driving through, playing, blasting their music, and it's cool, especially as you go down, hitting towards Miami. I mean, it's nice. Key West, right? But, and here goes the kicker with Florida. The further north you go, like Tallahassee, Jacksonville, oh man, it's like being in Lynch Mob, Mississippi. And I didn't know all this at the time, right? And this is no disrespect to the Navy, but I would say Florida is about especially being a black man. I'm just going to put it out there. being a black man, Florida is the worst damn place that you can get stationed at, right? Uh, Especially if you're in the Navy/Marine Corps. You know, the Marines won't tell you this, but you know, the Navy, it's the same thing, right? Both the Department of the Navy, okay? I just wanted to put that in there. But God bless the Marines. Cause I sure as hell know the Marines quite well, deployed with them quite a bit, okay? Because when I was on sea duty, I always wound up on a carrier, right? And that's where you find Marines mostly nowadays, on aircraft carriers and cruisers mostly. And I don't know, I have a tendency to think that whatever negativity that you will find on the personal level, right, in the Navy, it will be found in Florida. Because the way that they do it, what a lot of guys will do, if you're from Louisiana, or more specifically, if you're from like Mississippi, Alabama, then what you're going to try and do, you're going to try and get stationed in Florida. Ideally, Jacksonville or Tallahassee, right? Because again, that's North Florida, right? At the time we got there, my wife and myself, Jacksonville was, it was like a hotbed for Ku Klux Klan activity, American Nazi activity. There were a bunch of apartment complexes that were on this list that the Navy keeps at every base, right? This list consists of apartment complexes that the Navy knows discriminates, not just against black folks, but Hispanic, Asian, Filipino, you know. So, in other words, non-white. And there'll be a list because the Navy works with you to, you know, get housing and everything when you first get there. And if there's an apartment complex that the Navy has had a bad report on, they're going to work to see if they can find you someplace else, some other complex to move to. One that they don't have on their list, which would mean that there's been no problems with people of color living in there. See? And that's the, how should I say, that's the environment I brought myself and my wife to. And I hope, you know, I hope that she forgives me, God rest her soul, because that's the dumbest thing. One of the dumbest things. See, I told you this. Every man has at least one or two things in life that he regrets, or you could say mistakes that he's made. Quite frankly, I would be kind of leery of a person that's never made any bad mistakes in life, because that's how you learn, unfortunately. But anyway, make a long story short, the environment was such that it was a hostile environment. There's no two ways about it. And unfortunately, some of your senior people, they brought the same crap that they learned growing up in their Mississippi or Alabama or North Florida upbringing. They carried that crap with them through, you know, through their adult life. And the bad thing about being stationed in North Florida is that, as I said, the environment was conducive for people who think like that. And it was bad. It was real bad. And I'll tell you in what way. Now, we all know about the N-word, right? And I never had anybody come to my face or step to me, step to my face and, call me that N-word. I guess because the word got around that I was a kickboxer. But they were malicious and vicious, and using that type of language down below. See, when you're on the shore station in a squadron, you got the upstairs and downstairs. Downstairs is where you got, your techs, mechanics, so on and so forth. Upstairs, you have folks like me, operations type people, and I work upstairs, all right? But, word would get back to me about certain things. And I told the guy one time, I said, look, if so-and-so said that about me, then he's not a man, because if he had a problem with me, he would come to my face and say that. So I never, that wasn't my issue. But what was my issue was I'm in the Navy, I don't want to be around that kind of crap. I don't want to hear that kind of crap. The guy that was supposed to be my boss, right? A beautiful Chicano brother, man. Real hell of a nice guy. And they treated this man like a dog. And I spoke on it. Right upstairs, I spoke on it, I said, hey, this guy's a first-class petty officer. And, you would have a seaman, white kid from Michigan, right? Totally disrespect a first-class petty officer. And I'm not going to mention his name, but my man would say, the petty officer would say, Robert, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I'm like, yeah, but they disrespecting you, man. You shouldn't put up with that. You a better man than I am. Because I would have lost a stripe because I would have broke his jaw. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm going to be leaving here soon, so. And, several months later, a few months later, he had gotten his transfer, and he was gone. And the biggest, right, the biggest, nastiest name calling was about Jews. Jacksonville, Florida, hated Jews. And unfortunately, many of the naval personnel there hated Jews. They had American Nazis would come around the schools in that area, passing out their literature. They would do, all kinds of crazy stuff. They would go around complexes, apartment complexes. Do you have the Jews living here? It was like they were trying to take us to 1933 or 1932, Berlin. I'm talking serious Adolf Hitler type stuff. One time it got so bad, I wrote a letter. I don't know whatever happened to it. I wrote a letter to the NAACP in Washington, D.C., and whether anything happened because of it, I don't know. But see, my wife, her dad, right, her real father, because her parents were divorced, but her real father was a teacher, and he was a kind of a bigwig. in the Alexandria, Virginia NAACP. So he knew people up there in that D.C. area. And I passed what I wrote, I passed it on to him, and I also passed a copy to, who was that? Someone in naval personnel. What was that person's position? Anyway, I also gave a copy to our CO, right? Now, let me tell you, when we first got there, the CO that we had, lazy as crap, right? Yeah, I know. F-18 pilot and all this other good stuff. What you have to understand, the main thing that a pilot in the Navy does, he flies aircraft. He flies an aircraft. But there's a big difference between flying aircraft and being in command of people, right? That's why on the you see the aircraft carrier, you know, the Nimitz, the Kennedy, any one of those carriers, right? Before that guy gets to be command of that aircraft carrier, he will usually have been given the command of a big supply ship or a troop transport, right? Something really big. And the purpose of that is to get this officer used to being in command, not just of equipment, but also a group of people, see, to get him used to that. Because before that, right, he starts off as a junior officer, ensign, JG, full lieutenant, lieutenant commander. All that is because of the fact that, you know, he's flying an aircraft, right? It's not about him commanding men, as they say, or commanding men and women. He's not getting promoted for that. He's doing his job and he's getting his promotions because of the aircraft that he flies. But for him to go higher, or her to go higher in the command structure, they have to be in command of a big ship before they can go commanding an aircraft carrier, see. And what happened with my squadron, for some odd reason, this guy wound up being in command, and all this crap is happening right up there on that top floor, that second floor, and it was like no big deal to him, you know. And oh man, it was. I tell you, it was a very sad point of my life. It really was. And the constant aspersions about female officers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, real hateful, dangerous type stuff. And me, like a big chump, I'm the only one standing up and saying, no, this kind of crap is wrong. And finally what they did, they got a decent, XO, executive officer, who became the commanding officer. And right behind him, his XO became the new CEO after this guy had left. And between the both of them, they say, hey, we're going to, this crap has to come to an end. And when he took over, right, he had everybody, up in the anchor room. And he had the whole squadron in there. And he read us the riot act. basically saying, we will have none of this anti-Semitic stuff. I hear it, you're going to jail, or you're going out, you're getting out of the Navy, period. And you're probably going to wind up losing some stripes or some medal, talking about for the officers, right? Medal, Lieutenant, JG, what have you. But you're not going to leave here the same way you came in. You're going to be a bit lighter. And at that time, people were asking me, Robert, you're going to re-enlist, right? And I said, no. And it wasn't because I was so, bitter. I don't know, maybe I was to a point. But I was just totally bummed out. I was tired. I was truly tired. Because that hate, whether, I don't understand why people get into that anti-Semitism crap, right? I don't understand why people get into any type of anti-anything against any group of people or religion or what have you. Because so much energy is expended behind that bullshit. And come to find out that one of the main perpetrators, this guy was supposed to be a senior enlisted person, right? And he sucked at his job, quite frankly. And we found that out after they had gotten rid of him and his buddies. They got him the hell out of the squadron. But like I say, I was just so bummed out, right? And I really didn't take the time to find a reliable person who I could trust. I should have confided with the CO, but I didn't. I was hard-headed, to be honest about it, back in those days. I was a little bit more hard-headed. I mean, I did the right thing, but I know I'm right. The world knows I'm right, but I wouldn't let things just go with that, I guess somewhere inside of me, I was, I got to make my point. And that's how I chose to make it. And it cost me dearly. And if I had to do it all over again, I would, do things differently. And I missed my buddies. I missed the job that I was doing. But see, that's what happens. When you're around people that, I don't know, their lives, I don't know what it is, Are their lives so shallow and so empty that they have to hate? They have to find people to hate? Because, see, that crap spreads, and it's like a disease. It spreads, and I've seen it. I lived through it. And I will never tolerate an anti-Semite in my presence. Never. I mean, people go to work, ride the bus, ride the subway every day. You don't know who's who. But I'm saying I am not, of my own will, and my own volition, I will never associate with an anti-Semite. There's no way in hell. Because I'll tell you something else. Because I see some black faces in a lot of these demonstrations. And that's good, because the Palestinian people deserve justice. But I would be I would tell them, be careful, because the same people that express hatred against Jewish folks, believe me, they hate you too. they hate your black behind also, right? Avoid people in your movement who are talking hate, right? Talking justice, yes, by all means. But the damn Jews and no. Hey, ma'am, sir, you have to leave. You have to leave. You have to get the hell out. Because hate is just too damn costly. Because you're talking about a Jewish person like a dog at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, by 7 o'clock this evening, you're going to be talking about my black butt. So the hate, that's garbage. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that out because I'm going to be saying a lot of things, and I want people to understand exactly where it's coming from. Now, this business about the anti-Semitism, Israel is a sovereign nation. Okay, that happened in 1948. Now, I will tell you, I feel a lot of things were not done properly, the way that they should have been done. Oh, and also remember why that happened. It happened, a lot of that, I can hear somebody at home right now saying, oh, there he goes, blaming America. Well, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, America, we have our hand in that also. You have people begging America, saying we have evidence, we have the proof. FDR had it on his desk. What was happening to Jews in Europe, throughout Europe. The beatings, the murders, and then the concentration camps, the gas chambers. We knew that. We had the evidence. Trust me, we knew. We had the evidence here. But what happened? Generally speaking, and you had the same people, they might have died, but they're still around. You have a bunch of Southern senators jumping up and down, talking about, immigration restrictions, and, you don't want too many foreign people coming. We're right in the middle of an emergency situation. You got a world war going on. For the sake of humanity and mercy, you can't up your quota on the amount of Jewish people being taken in here in the United States. And that is so, that was so much bullshit. How do you, and that's another thing, right? The rules. Well, for most Jews to be able to come into the United States, you have to get a certificate of good behavior from a German police station. Now, you're talking about 1940, 41, right? You want this guy who has barely escaped with his life, not to mention the clothes on his back, and you expect this guy to be able to walk into a Nazi police station, because by then, if you had a job working in the police department in Germany, you were a Nazi. You had to be. Right? You were a party member. And you expect this Jewish person to go into that police station. Hi, I'm a Jew, and I don't like the persecution here in Germany, so I want to go to the United States. Ironically, at one point, Hitler was telling America, hey, you don't like how I treat Jews here? Fine, you take them. And we didn't take them. There was a ship. As a matter of fact, there was a movie made about it. Is that The Ship of Fools? It was with Lee Marvin, was one of the stars, right? These poor people are trying to flee Germany, and they wouldn't let them in. They wouldn't let them in the United States. For real. America even stopped Cuba, right, from allowing the Jews to land in Cuba. Oh, you should read some of the stories, man. Talk to some of the people. A lot of them are still alive. They might have been kids at the time, but they know what was going on. And see, that really was the major impetus for the state of Israel. And don't get me wrong, because some people say, oh, well, those Jews, they kept, they're always pushing and blah. Well, guess what? You stood around and you watched 6 million of my co-religionists burn up in the gas chamber. And now you're telling me I'm too sensitive. I would tell them, get the hell out of my face. Seriously. I'd probably tell them a hell of a lot more than that. But see, this is what I'm saying. I don't know if this is an American thing that we lose empathy for other people, or common sense. I don't know. But that's what really the whole push about Jews and Israel. That's what happened. The Western world stood by and allowed these poor people to be slaughtered. It's just that damn simple. And see, that's something that Martin Luther King reminded our State Department about back in the 60s, at the height of the Civil Rights Movement. That's one of the reasons why, if you know this, or if you know anything about the Civil Rights Movement, excuse me, I gotta watch out. Dust. But as I was saying, if you know anything about the Civil Rights Movement, that's why, excuse me, that's why you had such close coordination between the Jewish community and the civil rights community. Mutual oppression. We understood mutual oppression between Jewish people, the civil rights community, and the Irish community. One of the main supporters of both the Palestinians and, before that, the Jewish people, Jewish community, were Irish. The Irish. Why? Because these are groups that understand what oppression is all about. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, in America, we're terrible with history. And one thing I do fear in the black community is that a lot of black kids growing up, they don't know about these things, right? And they are just as ignorant as a lot of white kids who don't know about these things. And we have to stop that. That moron they have for a governor down there in Florida, for example, and in Texas, they're trying to crush all types of history being taught. But yeah, that's how it happened. The point is that you have to start, I'm getting close. You have to, you have to teach that there are reasons for things that you see. Okay, they just don't. It's not a case of somebody just waking up one day and say, "Hey, I want to go out here and start something." No, that's not no. It ain't like that. And see, this business now about, if you want to talk about divestiture, things of that nature, well, as I said, Israel, they are a sovereign nation. And I am an American. And if I choose to criticize what's going on, and my country is involved, then yeah, I have a right to do that. And anti-Semitism plays no part. I want Israel to survive. I want it to thrive, just like I want to see the Palestinians survive and thrive. But we have to be careful being quick to label each other. Now, I would tell, as I was starting to say before, I would tell the folks out there at Columbia and these other universities, be careful, because from the time this whole business started, when was that, October 7th? I just have this feeling of being played. Now, I will tell you, half my naval career, I spent in intelligence with DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. And we know Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, they are second to none. Okay? And I'll let it go with that. I would just say that they have been of great help to our intelligence services, the Brits, the French, etc. Okay? They are good, very good. So I don't understand how that thing was able to be pulled off with such precision. I don't know. That's something that really needs to be looked into, but that is for the people of Israel to do, right? I make no secret of the fact I've never cared for it. I always have a hard time pronouncing his name, Netanyahu, their prime minister. I saw what he tried to do to Obama. I don't like it. Because I feel that he interferes a little bit too much in our American politics. I don't go for that. I don't think no American should. But just because I don't like government policy in Israel, that does not make me anti-Semitic. Just because I choose to protest that policy, that doesn't make me anti-Semitic. Just like protesting what these Afrikaners were doing in South Africa, that doesn't make me anti-white. And that's something that we need to check ourselves here, right? The people who are anti-Semitic and attack Jews, they need to be taken by their ankles and dragged through the streets, being whipped. That's how strongly I feel about anti-Semitism. But we cannot allow people to screw with our elections, to screw with our emotions, and make us move in directions that we don't need to move as Americans. So that's the point that I wanted to make before we finish up here today. And once again, read, pay attention to what's going on, because this does concern you. And I am so sad when I see people, they talk about things and they have no idea what they're talking about, right? Kind of like Bill Maher, for example. He has a very bad habit of speaking about issues that he's never really experienced. And I would go into that, but we don't really have the time here because my time runs short. But listen, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to us, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place, same channels. Take care. Bless you.
Okay, you went over, so they're not going to get that last.